You can use your hidden memory power to build quickly and easily a permanent and natural memory for any amount of information you desire. Tapping your own memory power can increase your income, influence, prestige, and your power with people. It can provide you with a greater sense of control and happiness. As you listen, you'll discover that through power thinking, you can deliberately magnify and fully focus your present mental power on what you want to remember. You will develop a rewarding memory for names and faces and facts about people. You will learn the Power Pack method, by which you can instantly pack your mind with the power from printed material, and learn how to use clues to remember what you want to remember, and to use your picture memory book to store information easily. You'll learn a faultless and impressive method for listening with 100% accuracy, a tremendous personal attribute that will pay off immediately and handsomely for you. You'll learn to use your mind for a wide variety of self-improvement subjects. Let's get right down to business by showing you how to develop the king of memory skills, the ability to remember names and faces. Everyone wants to be remembered by name. You probably agree that you remember faces better than names. That's because the face is a picture, and you, like all human beings, have a tremendous and accurate memory for pictures. When you recognize someone, you are literally saying to yourself, "I have seen that picture before." But the name to you is not a picture. The common remedy of memory specialists is to tell you that you must make a picture of the name and associate it with the face. In some cases, this can be easily done. Most people picture the name Hersey as Hershey. If you picture Hersey rubbing his white hair with a Hershey bar to dye it brown, you will remember his name. But such a procedure goes against the self-image most people have of themselves as logical thinkers. The solution to this is another kind of picture association. You must first get the name correctly. Nobody will react negatively when you insist on getting their name straight. Even when you are introduced to John Smith, say, "Is that just old-fashioned Smith?" Occasionally you'll be corrected with a spelling of S-M-Y-T-H-E or S-C-H-M-I-D-T. Level with the person you're being introduced to by saying, "Thank you. I always like to get names right. I have to work at remembering them. If I don't get them right, I'm lost." The process here is deliberate mental storage. Now you must lock the name and the face or appearance of the individual securely into your mind. Suppose you met me and thought first, "He is tall, has white hair, and a scar on his chin." Say to yourself, "Hersey is tall. Hersey has white hair. Hersey has a scar on his chin." Take these 3 points and repeat them with the name, and do this silently to yourself for 20 seconds. 15 seconds won't do as well. The first things you notice this time will be the first things you notice the second time. These things may be different from what anyone else will notice, but that is not important. You should realize that you don't have to remember anyone who has no meaning for you. If you are being introduced quickly, as a courtesy, you don't have to remember everyone, only those who are important to you. You will occasionally find a way to remember names by an association with the person's meaning to you. About someone whose name you have forgotten or never knew, you might think, "Who was that fat insurance salesman who tried to sell us that policy last year?" His name to you is fat or insurance salesman. One of these is descriptive of his physical appearance, and the second is what he meant to you. If his name were Hunter, you might have associated it with fat, as in a fat hunter. Or if you were thinking about insurance salesman, you might have pictured him hunting for sales. A plumber once told me about a lady who insisted on copper tubing throughout her house. Her name to him is Mrs. Copper Tubing. I suggested that if he could picture her name formed with copper tubing in the drain, he would never forget it. So see the name in with the thing that has meaning for you. The meaning will make the name stick. All names have meaning by definition, and if you can either discover the real meaning or make up a meaning of your own, you will be able to remember. I once met a Mr. Sedlacek. He told me that it meant little farmer in Czechoslovakian. He was a big man, and the contrast with his size and the meaning of his name made it memorable. On the other hand, Mr. Jablonski may be thought of as Jab Long Ski. Although it is not the true meaning, it can be remembered because it has some meaning. A Mr. Levinsky told me to remember Love in the Sky, and I've never forgotten it. You can also substitute a word that will bridge over to a meaning in your own mind. I once met a Mrs. Bank who said people have trouble remembering her name. I suggested she tell them they can bank on bank. If you have a meeting or a social affair to attend, you can often find out in advance who will be there. If you do, and memorize a list of 10 people in 10 minutes, you'll have a head start, especially with unfamiliar names. People will be pleased and surprised if you pronounce their difficult names correctly the first time. Remember people, and they will remember you. Have you ever forgotten a person with a good memory? Let me share with you an interesting and fascinating use of power thinking. It is an interesting game that will greatly increase your ability to observe differences in appearance. On Monday, practice observing people's mouths and see what a tremendous variety there is. On Tuesday, look at people's eyes. On Wednesday, observe noses. On Thursday, look at ears. On Friday, look at hair, or the lack of it. On Saturday, look at head shapes. You will be cultivating your ability to notice the differences and describe them in your own way for your own purposes. You may now be saying, I don't have 20 seconds. I am introduced too rapidly. Be completely realistic. When people come at you too rapidly, make a stab at it, but don't get uptight about it. When the introductions are over and things settle down, start looking for ways to meet 1 or 2 or 3 people. Say, I'm sorry, but we were introduced so quickly that I didn't get your name clearly. They'll probably say, well, I didn't get yours either. Now you're back to the 20-second procedure. Don't hurry. Notice how much a quarterback accomplishes in 20 seconds. If you're sitting at a conference table, make notes and plan to use coffee breaks to add to your bank of names. Frankly, the one difference between me and the average person going to a conference or social gathering is that I plan to use power thinking to remember people and start doing it slowly and systematically. You can see that if I spend a minute with each person, I can do what seems to be phenomenal. An important point here is how you will hold the person's attention, get him to talk, and give you the time you need. Why not use the ordinary remarks upon the weather, such as, what a winter we're having, what a storm. Is it hot enough for you? Or, what beautiful weather. Here are some responses you might make to get thinking time. What's the worst winter you ever survived? What's the worst storm you can remember? What's the hottest weather you ever experienced? In all these responses, you're getting the other person to talk, and you'll be amazed at the answers people give. One man told me about spending time at the South Pole. Things people say make them more meaningful and more memorable to you. Another question you can ask is, do you come from around here? Another question I find useful is, tell me, what is your work? I asked this question of a man who turned out to be a livestock auctioneer. And then I asked him what was the highest price he ever got for an animal. He told me, well, I got $165,000 for a dead steer. And I have never forgotten that. These are the simplest and most generally acceptable methods of remembering names and faces. Another helpful practice is saying the other person's name 3 times in conversation immediately after being introduced. Since this is not always practical, you may substitute by saying the name silently to yourself. Another technique is making an exaggerated picture of the name and face. Of course, you should not hesitate to write down the names of people you have met during the day or at a meeting. The best idea is to keep a card file or list and review it frequently. Now, let's do an exercise in power thinking. This exercise will combine names with important information you know about people. First, think of someone you know as Fred. Have you pictured him? Okay. Now, his last name is Painter. Fred Painter runs a laundromat. Put together in your mind a picture linking Fred with Painter with laundromat. You might picture your friend Fred painting the laundromat in wild colors, or even pouring paint into the washing machine. The tape will pause while you paint the picture on the mural of your mind. Now, what is Painter's first name? His business. Simple, wasn't it? Let's try another one. The first name is Jacqueline. The last name is Gray, and she is a druggist. Make a wild or exaggerated picture using your picture for Jacqueline, linked with your picture for Gray, linked to your picture for druggist. What is Gray's first name? Her business? What is Painter's first name? His business? See how easy it is? Let's try another. The first name is Arthur. The second name is Long, and he is a mattress manufacturer. Link your pictures of these three elements together. Let's try a fourth one. The first name is Ted, and the last name is Cohen, and he is a baseball player. Put those three elements together in a picture. Okay, what is Cohen's first name? Business? What is Long's first name? Business. Gray's first name? Business. Painter's first name? Business. You've just proven to yourself that you can use power thinking to link pictures representing information to produce perfect recall. You'll find it possible to do the name and fact routine on about 10 names in 10 minutes. This skill is tremendously impressive in a business situation and a great icebreaker in social situations. It is an impressive way to start using power thinking to cash in on your hidden memory power. Consider this example of putting this skill to a practical application. I arrived one evening at a meeting of a small Rotary Club in Panama. When I walked in, no one was there, but the box of badges showing names and occupations was sitting on a table. I memorized a list of 30 people with their occupations in about 15 minutes. As the members came in, I'd say, "Hi, my name's Bill. Just tell me your last name, please." And when I got that, I could tell them their first names and occupation. I'd say, "You're Joe Meyer in the swimming pool business." It made quite a hit. After the meeting, I went back to my hotel and wrote out a list of the people and their occupations together with other information I'd picked up. I put this list away under Panama in my alphabetical file. I didn't know if I would ever return, but 1 year later I did. I pulled the list, used power thinking to rememorize it, and everyone thought I had remembered it during the entire year. That was not necessary, but it was a practical use of power thinking. We cannot hold on to information that our subconscious tells us we will probably never need again, but we can use power thinking skills to cash in on records we have kept about people. When I go back to an area where I have met people, I look over my list and say, who am I supposed to know? Then I rememorize the information about them. You can never expect to remember everyone, but you can remember those who are important to you. You can use mental power packs to have the power of profitable and rewarding information in your mind every hour. You probably remember that early in your school career, you learned the spaces on the musical staff because they spelled face. That was a power pack. It had nothing to do with music, but it did hold musical information where you could think about it until it became useful musical knowledge. The lines E, G, B, D, F had no meaning until you were taught to remember, every good boy does fine. That had meaning. Using the sentence form of power pack, your teacher gave you a sentence to cement the sequence of the lines in your mind. I call this a shoehorn sentence because it helps to ease the information into your mind. For a practical application of this kind of power pack in your grown-up life, select one or two of your favorite inspirational books on positive thinking and living. You'll note that these books use lists of rules and other important points to help you live an effective, prosperous life. When you have read over one of the lists, note the key words in each item. List these key words or ideas, deciding what is most meaningful to you. Then, using either the power pack method of making a word out of the first letters of the key ideas or the sentence method, devise a power pack that is meaningful to you. With your power pack, you have the rules in the temporary grasp of your mind where you can think about them in a complete, orderly, and faultless manner. You can visualize the rewards they'll bring to you. Your temporary memory is somewhat like a sponge. You can soak up just so much fluid before it has to be squeezed out so that you can soak up more. The short-term memory must be squeezed into the bucket of your permanent memory systematically at 4-hour intervals. The only way to accomplish this is through scientifically planned, spaced repetition. Psychologists have known for 100 years that if you can repeat something at intervals of about 4 hours, you can memorize it permanently with fewest repetitions. For instance, if it took 30 repetitions to lodge something in your memory at one sitting, it would take only about 15 if you spaced out the repetitions, and the material would stay with you longer. The problem, of course, was in retrieving the material for review every 4 hours. But using the power pack allows you to have material for review always at the tip of your mind for planned, spaced repetition. I want you to picture now that you are seated in an expensive, luxurious restaurant, and the waiter has just served you the best steak dinner you ever saw. You think you have a steak dinner, but you haven't until you consciously cut that steak up, consciously chew each piece long enough to pass it on safely to the subconsciously directed digestive process that will extract from it the nutrients you need and put them where they belong. You can't say which meal put the blood in your finger, the spring in your step, or the twinkle in your eye. But if you do your part of eating the right food regularly and chewing it sufficiently, all the rest is safely handled by the automatic process of your body. Similarly, if you chew over, review, and think about the points in the material that you want to memorize, if you review them every 3 or 4 hours for 3 or 4 days, the silent, sleepless servant of your subconscious mind will process their strength into your body of profitable thought. But how can you remind yourself to review the material every 4 hours when your life patterns are already firmly established? If you had an important person who would tap you on the shoulder every 4 hours and remind you to take 2 minutes for effective review, you'd do it. You can have a very famous man prompt you several times a day. Most of us have a high opinion of Benjamin Franklin. If you have read his autobiography, I'm sure you were impressed with his self-improvement program. He kept a chart of 13 virtues and checked off his progress regularly. You can think of Benjamin Franklin as a symbol representing self-improvement. Now, pause for a moment and picture yourself as you will be when you're eating breakfast tomorrow morning. Now, picture that Benjamin Franklin has joined you for breakfast. Picture him across the table from you. See his little square glasses, his thin shoulder-length gray hair surrounding a bald head. He will want tea, not coffee, and he'll probably drink it out of his saucer. See that vividly. Try to imagine what you will serve him that he would like. If you have taken a few seconds to create this scene realistically, tomorrow morning and every morning you will see Ben Franklin, and he will remind you to use power thinking to run that current of self-improvement or other memory projects through your mind. Now, pause again and see Ben Franklin with you at your coffee break. Stop and see that scene and the excitement it would cause in your office. Think about lunch and see him with you then, and again at the evening meal. Make it vivid and realistic. It may sound crazy, but tell no one else, and you'll have him popping up just about every 4 hours to remind you to remember to improve yourself. Since meal times are usually periods of relative relaxation, they are the best time for mental review. When you feed your body, feed your mind, and deliberately nourish your abilities. Make your coffee break a memory break. COFFEE is my power pack for the complete, orderly, faultless, frequent, easy, effective review. You can also picture Ben driving with you or tucking you in at night, since just before falling asleep is one of the best times for review. If you did not actually do the previous visualization of Ben Franklin, stop now, rewind the tape, and do it. If your goals are related to money, use the powerful reminder of Ben Franklin's face on the $100 bill. You can picture a $100 bill at the bottom of your cereal bowl, in your coffee cup, or on your toast. The bill would be a vivid and relevant reminder that spaced repetition will make more money for you. One of the easiest ways to remind yourself to review is to carry a dozen reminder mints in a plastic sandwich bag. These are the after-dinner mints that you see in so many restaurants. You can buy them in 8-ounce packages in your supermarket, and each package contains about 300 mints. Take 12 mints and put them in a small plastic bag or pill bottle and carry them with you. Take one at each mealtime or coffee breaks as a reminder to review your current memory project. 12 mints will cover the essential 3 days. Refill the container with 12 more mints and start a new project. Resist the temptation to eat the mints at any other time. Use them to remind yourself to enjoy the sweet taste of success. Let's apply power thinking to these points from the SMI tape condensation of Dr. Maxwell Maltz's book, Psycho-Cybernetics. On the cassette tape, Dr. Maltz discusses what he calls the basic principles by which your success mechanism operates. Maltz says that the success instinct operates according to goals and end results. The means whereby you reach the goal will appear as you keep your eye on the goal. All skill learning is the result of trials and mistakes, and we remember our successes and forget our failures. Maltz says that people must trust this creative mechanism to do its work because it operates in the subconscious, where we are unaware of what is going on. Then he quotes Emerson, "Do the thing, and you will have the power." Now, let's make a picture for each key word for these principles, and put your picture where you can look back on it and use power thinking to review the points. You never have to justify your pictures. They are for your use alone. Think of a picture that to you represents goals. See that picture off to your left. Make it bigger than life, as an advertiser would do. Now, think of your picture for ends, and see that picture right in front of you. If you can involve yourself in the picture, that would help. As with advertising, exaggeration, color, and action all make pictures more impressive. What picture is to your left? In front of you. Good. Now, make a picture which to you represents means, and see it off to your right. Make your picture for trial, and see it behind you. Now, what picture is to your left? In front. To your right. Behind you. Think of your picture for mistakes and put it under your feet. On your hat or head, put your picture for trust, and across your chest, put your vivid picture for power. Review what is to your left. In front of you. To your right. In back of you. Under your feet. On your head. Across your chest. You probably recalled every pictorial clue. You have used 7 spaces around the body for easels and have put pictorial clues on your easels just so you could think about them in a complete, orderly, faultless, frequent, easy, effective manner. Let's examine another set of easily remembered easels. The setup of the easels must not be more work than remembering the thing itself. We can all count to 10. It is an unforgettable sequence closely locked into the mind. You can make pictures out of words suggested by each number by rhyming them. For 1, use gun, sun, bun, run, or fun. For 2, use shoe, glue, or stew. For 3, use tree, fee, or bee. For 4, use door, store, or bore. For 5, use dive or hive. For 6, use sticks, bricks, or fix. For 7, use heaven or leaven. For 8, use gate, wait, bait, or state. For 9, use wine, vine, line, or pine. For 10, use hen, men, or pen. Make your own selection of just 1 word for each digit. An Indian friend starts off with Sun, Sioux, Cree, since they are definite pictorial concepts to him. Your list will be the best for you. To practice your personal clues for each number, use the newspaper. Find 10 headlines and associate a key word in each headline with your picture for each number. If your first headline concerns rising prices and your word for 1 is gun, you might picture holding up your supermarket manager with a gun while you carry large bags of high-priced groceries. If your second headline concerns last night's school board meeting and your picture for the number 2 is shoe, you might picture all the shoes of the school board members under the table as they conducted the meeting. Continue to use your simple list of words rhyming with numbers to associate the headline for each story with your picture. If you continue this practice for 5 days, you'll have practiced 50 visualizations of news information, and you'll have shown yourself that any picture can be associated pictorially with any other picture. You can use the method of numbered easels on anything you want to remember. This warm-up exercise prepares you for the serious business of recalling accurately. As an example of your use of power tools for power thinking, consider again the simple pliers. Pliers amplify your present physical power so that you can grasp and move what was immovable or handle something which is too hot to handle. You don't carry pliers in your pocket to pick up everything, and they don't resemble what you hold with them. You call pliers a tool, not a gimmick. Similarly, when you need to grasp firmly some information that your normal memory slant doesn't grasp easily, you have the memory method as a tool, not a gimmick, for concentrated, powerful, skid-proof thinking. Fight off the temptation to think that your mental tool must have a logical link with your subject matter. Can you think of any tool that resembles the material being worked on with that tool? Use power thinking when and where you find it personally useful for retaining essential information. Resolve to put your memory where the money is. We all go through a certain routine of good grooming every day. We may not have an aggressive intent to impress someone with our appearance, but we feel better when we are well groomed. Resolve to take something out from between your ears and spend just a few minutes grooming it every day with power thinking. If you have even 10 things on your mental easels, you can review them all mentally in a good deal less than 2 minutes. If someone increased his height by even 5%, everybody would notice it. So you don't have to double your mental capacity. You only have to know how to groom what you have so that other people will get the message. For example, the next time you read an article in a magazine or newspaper and think, "That's interesting. My boss would be interested in that. I'm going to take it to him." But when you go in to see the boss, you may say something like this: "Hi, Mr. Big, I read an article the other day about cutting down on warehousing expense. I thought you might like to read it, so I brought it in for you." To which the boss replies, "Hey, that's great. Thanks a lot. I'll try to read it sometime soon." But you could have used power thinking to gain increased impact and prestige with the same article. First, read the article. List the key points and memorize them. Then walk in the office and say, "Hi, Mr. Big, I read an article on cutting down on warehousing expense and thought you might be interested. It says..." Then you tell him without blinking an eye or looking at the article the points that are made. When you've finished, you say, "Here's a copy." Now, what has just happened? You let the boss know that you're smart enough to pick up and retain useful business-related information. Business reports are often broken down into 6 easy steps, or 5 things to look for. If you read such articles regularly and conscientiously and bring pertinent ideas in your field to the attention of interested people using the power thinking methods you have learned, you will be amazed at the winning power it will put on your side and the reputation it will build for you as a person who thinks purposefully about information pertinent to business. If you're in sales work, you can frequently pick up ideas or articles that will be of interest to your customers and prospects. You can readily build a reputation as an idea person wherever you go. These are quick and powerful ways to impress people. But there is a yet more powerful tool that you can use instantly and easily to impress others: your ability to listen accurately and let the speaker know that you have heard what was said. Everyone wants to be listened to. And if you can show that you are listening and see value in what is being said, you will be exercising a powerful method for gaining instant prestige and influence with co-workers, family, and friends. If you want to live profitably and achieve greater success, develop your listening skill and bask in the immediate positive reaction and success that is the reward of the intelligent listener. Why is it so difficult to listen accurately? What did you have for breakfast? As soon as you heard that question, your mind went through a process in a second or two that would have taken you several seconds to express. You may have thought of what you had for breakfast in a fraction of a second. Yet, to say it aloud would have taken you 4 or 5 times longer. This illustration shows us the biggest barrier to effective listening. It is the difference between the speed at which we think, about 600 to 1,200 words per minute, and the speed at which we can speak, not much over 200 words per minute. The average lecturer speaks at only 100 to 150 words per minute, and the listener's mind has a great deal of spare time in which to go off on unrelated tangents. Basically, listening is a question of keeping your mind on the person talking and remembering his ideas. To check up on your listening ability, Listen to a television or radio newscast for 5 minutes. Either record the soundtrack or have someone make written notes of the subjects covered. At the end of 5 minutes, see how many topics you can jot down and compare your performance with the actual broadcast. As a second exercise, listen to these instructions. You are to take your car and go to Kennedy Airport. You are to meet Eastern's Flight 345, which arrives at 2:30 p.m. You are to meet Mr. Pisano. You will drive him to Baltimore, to the Federal Building. Take him to Mr. Walensky in room 1101. When you have accomplished this, call me, and tomorrow morning bring in your expense vouchers, and we'll pay them. Stop the tape and jot down the key points. Check the tape. How did you do? How well do you listen? You already have the best listening device in the world at hand. No, it's not your ears. It is the use of power thinking with the simple set of number-rhyming easels which you have already memorized. You can use it with 100% effectiveness to increase your influence and the positive impression you make on others. After 2 or 3 days' practice with newspaper headlines, you will be thoroughly familiar with the method and convinced by your own experience that you can put a pictorial clue on any one of the rhyming words and that it will stick. When someone talks to you, listen and use your easels. When that person finishes, you might say, "That's interesting. If I understand you correctly, you made 7 points. They are..." He knows that you heard him loud and clear, and that you have done something that no one else has done. You remembered what he said and proved that to him. Who else has ever given him that much respect? Realistically, many situations will come up where the speaker is not well organized, does not articulate clearly, wanders around, and you too may be distracted. But you can create a second, third, and even fourth chance to understand the other person clearly. There are several phrases for managing the conversation and making sure you've got it all before you commit yourself. Probably one of the safest responses you can make to another person is, "That's interesting." Then be sure to pause and take a deep breath before you say another word. If you do not pause, but go right on, you betray that you do not believe it was interesting. After you have taken that deep breath, try one of these expressions. Tell me more. How did you come to that conclusion? How do you suppose that such and such occurred? You've made a number of interesting points. I wonder if you could expand on that fourth one about the new budgetary policy. A speaker will love being asked to expand. The key words to these responses are tell, how, and expand. The power pack for tell, how, and expand is the word the, T-H-E. People do want to talk. Help them by accurate, intelligent, and responsive listening. And help yourself to instant influence with people. Many people have the idea that if you are learning a memory system, you should remember everything. Nothing could be less realistic than such an approach. To try would be just as foolish as trying to read everything, just because you now have reading glasses. Let's talk about the practical use of paper and pencil. It has been said that a short pencil is sometimes better than a long memory. Power thinking is selective and purposeful and is not to be wasted on situations that are better handled by paper and pencil. The wise use of paper and pencil involves using written notes and reminders, calendar pads, and tickler files for matters that must be taken care of or followed up in the future. It is too much work to carry everything in your mind, but much of what you have on your follow-up file for action in the short term can be memorized. You will find yourself getting the items done more quickly and efficiently if you memorize them. For practice, make a written list of the 10 most urgent things to be done on your job today and memorize it. When these things are on your mind rather than on your desk, you will work them into your day much better. When you are interrupted and directed to do something else, you have a double defense if you have memorized your must-do list. You can point to other things pending, and you save yourself from mentally giving up and forgetting to resume your urgent items after an interruption. The force of someone else's position, personality, or expression sometimes acts to erase things from our minds, while a continuous, clear concept of 10 urgent items helps you to defend yourself from that kind of reaction. As an example of using this advantage, let's say you have your list clearly in your mind and are progressing in getting it done. Your supervisor comes over and says, "I need to get this report out as soon as possible." You reply, "Okay, I have 6 things left to do on today's schedule. Do you want me to make that number 1 or number 7? You've used power thinking to advertise that you are organized. At the end of each day, write down, organize, and memorize your list for the following day. You'll find that your subconscious mind works on the list all through the night and automatically comes up with better ideas for getting the essential work done before the start of the next day. Try this technique for at least 3 days. Arrange the items by priority, number them, and memorize the list. You can review it on your way home and possibly before you go to bed. You can review during a TV commercial. All you have to do is organize and memorize, and the rest is free, effortless work by that willing, sleepless servant, your subconscious mind. Now, let's talk about how to survive a seminar and double your knowledge in any learning situation. It is a vital use of power thinking that will pay off promptly for you whenever you enroll in a course, attend a seminar or conference, or engage in training for your company. Let's begin by discussing the best way to read and assimilate material from the printed page. You must skim, underline, and express. The first step is to skim the material. Look over the table of contents, paragraph headings, or the first line of each paragraph. You will have some sense of the overall pattern that is covered. The second step is to read and underline the significant points in each paragraph. Some paragraphs will consist of examples rather than new ideas and will not require underlining. The third step is to stop every page or so and jot down in the margin what each paragraph means in your own words, using a key word or headline word to remind you of what the paragraph covers. Continue the process systematically. Don't plow ahead too far without assimilating the meaning by putting it into your own words. You can summarize these steps by handling written material in the Power Pack SUE, Skim, Underline, Express. This systematic approach of underlining and reducing the meaning to your own words can cut your study time in half. You can memorize the clues to each paragraph or significant section and then use power thinking to review the clues in accordance with spaced repetition. Note-taking should follow the same procedure. Don't take too many notes. Make notes of the principal ideas or clues, and if time permits, keep setting them up on mental easels so that you can use any breaks in the procedure as memory breaks. Whether you're in a classroom, a seminar, or a training session, never wait until the end of the day to review your notes. If you go through a period of relaxation, the happy hour and dinner, your stock of retained information is fading. If you have practiced using power packs and easels, you can use power thinking to make productive use of your time by putting profitable information into your mind. An additional advantage of using these methods of reading and note-taking is the ability to ask intelligent questions. If you are sent to a seminar or training session by your company, you can give a better report when you return and can demonstrate through your improved performance that investment in your training benefits the organization. Another important payoff of power thinking is the ability to remember numbers. A few people have excellent number memories and do not need any help. But for many of us, time wasted in looking up telephone or other numbers is money out of our pockets. Remembering numbers will help you in your daily life and in many different lines of study which you may decide to pursue. The problem with most numbers is that they have no meaning. When we had word prefixes for telephone exchanges, it's likely that you remembered frequently called numbers more easily than you remember the present 7-digit numbers. Adding meaning makes numbers stick. A quick way to remember a number is to associate it with something you already know. For instance, 12:15 may suggest time for lunch. It happens to be the year in which the Magna Carta was signed. If you picture the king and his nobles having lunch at 12:15 to sign the Magna Carta, you will remember the date. A few years ago, a man who was studying for the civil service exam for the police chief was troubled by the necessity of remembering the chapter or section of the law that applied to a particular offense. For instance, Section 314 applied to rude and disorderly conduct. Since he knew someone who lived at the number 314, he pictured himself arresting that person for the offense of disorderly conduct. He carried out this same visualization in many areas, and not only became chief, but trains his men quickly. By associating a new number with a familiar one, he created a context for remembering. Planned or controlled association raised this man's pay and grade. Still another method of remembering numbers is to make a price out of the number. You may know the first 3 digits of a telephone number, but have trouble with the last 4. Pretend the last 4 are a price. For instance, if the doctor's number is 3915, 3915, pretend he charged you $39.15 for a house call. If Mildred's beauty parlor number is 4912, pretend she charged you $49.12 for a shampoo and set. Doing this adds meaning to telephone numbers. Any meaning will do, and a bridge can be built from one meaning to another. Your meaning is best. Feel free about using your own meaning, and to break the link of logic, to use an illogical method for a logical result. Another way to remember numbers is a quick exaggeration. Picture yourself painting a number in big figures. If you want to remember your friend's address at 415 Oak Street, picture yourself painting it on his house in red figures. A police officer pictures himself painting license numbers on the back of cars in big figures in colors contrasting to those of the car. Let's look at several other examples of easily remembered easels. First, think of words suggested to you by the alphabet. My picture for A is ape. My B picture is a honeybee. My picture for C is of the sea, and so forth. Determine your pictures for each letter of the alphabet and memorize them. You can earn the amendments to the Constitution, your grocery list, or a list of personal development guidelines using these letters of the alphabet and your vivid mental pictures associated with the items you want to remember, just as you did with the words rhyming with the numbers. If you are a particularly avid sports fan, use the field positions of your sport as your easels. A baseball fan can use the pitcher, catcher, first base, shortstop, left field, and so on, to create pictures for things to be remembered. Remember that you must break the link of logic in order to use these easels. If you are a golfer, think of each hole as having 3 characteristics: tee, trap, and green. If you are a bowler, think of the things related to bowling: shoes, ball, towel, gutter, alley, strike, spare, and score sheet. Set the things you want to remember in a definite order, and make vivid pictures to associate these familiar items to the things you want to remember. The Roman orator Cicero used a system for orations which stays with us even today. The expression, in the first place, in the second place, and so on, come from his memory method. Cicero wrote out his orations and pictured the key points associated with a series of objects in and around his home. His speeches were well organized and said exactly what he planned to say. As a result, he successfully persuaded his listeners. You can use several rooms in your house and picture 5 major objects in each room. Mentally, walk through the house, picking up the picture clues that you have placed on these objects. You can begin with the room you first enter in your home. In the kitchen, for instance, pick the items in the order you would normally walk past them. Yours could be, first, the sink, second, the stove, third, a chair, fourth, the table, fifth, the refrigerator. You can use these visual images to remember the headlines in the newspaper, the points of your speech, or the points of a lecture. Make a vivid action picture associating your easel with the idea you would like to remember. You will find this type of list easy to remember, especially if you arrange it to fit your own house. These power packs for your success are easy to use and are entirely your own. You can use them whenever and however you like. The important point is that you use them. Just for a moment, imagine you are the captain of an oil tanker. A tremendous ship loaded with a valuable cargo of energy is under your command. You are approaching New York Harbor. Your skill has brought your ship to the threshold of the greatest country on earth. But now, you need help for the last few critical miles to navigate the traffic, riptides, and cross-currents of the great port of New York. What will you do? You will do what every other good captain does. Slow down off Sandy Hook and pick up a pilot from the pilot boat stationed there. You don't take him on and take him to your cabin for coffee and donuts. You give him full charge of your ship and its vital cargo. You do not second-guess his decisions. No one contradicts his orders. Because of your strict obedience to a professional, you and your cargo reach the port, so you will be paid. The world is full of professional pilots for your life and your career. Pilots for positive living, greater sales, greater income, better education, better human relationships, and for other productive courses you want to pursue with your personal supply of energy. Do you take them on board, or do you wave to them as you go past? Oh, yes, you say, I know where the pilot is. Someday, I'll take him on. But someday never comes. The time is today. For today is the day power thinking will show you exactly how to pick up the pilot and put him in full charge of your life on any course you decide you really want to pursue. It's not enough to read fine books and hear inspiring talks by skilled life pilots. That's like having coffee with the Marine pilot while your ship runs aground. Power thinking will show you how to absorb and implant the rules of the greatest pilots easily and quickly. You will benefit from their professional guidance in reaching your goals and will be paid for the valuable energy you pour into your life.